going? Y'all back with another one, back with another one. This is the Daily Hump Dump, the 52nd edition. And I'll be right with you. We'll be talking about a little sports talk, little current events, see what's going on. I just watched there's a viral pop of the balloon shows about BBWs and stuff. And most of them are entertainers. They come from OnlyFans and things like that. I thought that was very interesting. And you even got some of them in their community don't approve of it either. You know, they try to say someone's down bad. Yeah, that's them wanting attention. You have to understand that's the tension is currency. Am I correct? Am I correct? This tension currency? Yeah, it's currency. It's currency. So it's very currency. So yeah. It's just goes to show you that the world has changed a little bit. I'm not talking about just dating. We talk about a lot of stuff here, and then we talked about the sports last week. The playoffs, the NBA playoffs. I don't think they're rigged. I think it's just designed that they're trying to push women to the finals and stuff like that. But I think what I'm seeing is like I enjoy these playoffs. Now everybody's tripping about the Pistons lose to the Magic. Orlando Magic is a bricklayer team. I'm just gonna put that out there. If they don't come out, if the Orlando Magic do not come out and beat the Detroit Pistons tonight, and I love both of these teams. I don't believe in Valo Venchero. I just don't believe it because somebody that was talking about the Magic, he was on Lockdown the Magic before, and he got his own channel. But shouts to him for saying they did this before and then they lost. So what it's saying is this has been done before. We got to be careful what we say that the Magic is good and this and that, and you just got to look at the things that mattered at the time. So, when they had Vukovic, yeah, they was cold. Yeah, Vukovic was their vocal point. But when they went with Banchero, he's with the Celtics now. Now the Celtics lost last night to the Sixers. I'm not surprised by that loss because they have beaten them in the regular season series. This is without Joel Embiid. I don't want to hear about no Celtics. Remember, Jason Tatum is 85% healthy. So it's like, this stuff is just crazy what we seeing. And it's just like I understand why people think he the man, but really it's Jalen Brown. Jalen Brown is put him the second seed for a reason. It's really him. It's up to him if he survived it or not. But I think they'll probably win the series, but it could be if the Sixers upset them. That's the only upset I can say. I could say Philadelphia and probably Atlanta and the Knicks. The Knicks are a joke, to be honest with you. Knicks ain't won since the 70s. Even though we've seen this before, I'm not a New York Knicks fan, but I've been watching All Ball TV. Shouts out to them, and they tell it like it is. But until they get a point guard, they they'll win a championship by now. They'll have a title, but since they don't have a point guard, and Brunson is heliocentric, you won't able to have anything to monitor to win a championship. So I just look at those things and like when you play basketball. This stuff is going to matter. Oh, man. But that's just what I'm saying. Like, you got to look at these things and if it's going to matter or not. All right. Let's see what this is going. Mm. All right. I'm just going to get my chest filled and all that. Okay. And then not just look at these stuff and then just go crazy. Oh, damn. They got me with the electricity. Okay. But I was looking at how people complain about those teams, but I got Detroit coming out the East. If they don't come out, it's Boston. But the East can be a toss up. Way this playoffs can turn out. But me personally, I trust the Pistons win this game tonight because I always like the Pistons more than anything. But I've yet to see anybody talk about them like good or anything. This it's always negative, and I've seen this before. I've seen this in the Ben Wallace era. I mentioned it on this channel. I always liked it. Them, I'm a Bulls guy first, but the Bulls ain't did shit since then. Now the Jaden Ivey thing, I think I covered that last couple of weeks, and that is very serious what he did, and there's a time and place for that. I agree with him, but the thing is, you can't say it now. Now, if this was cool in the '90s or back in the day, yeah, I can I could see him thriving off of that. Because the '90s, you really got away with murder. If you're a Christian, you get to now, but now you got these insensitive fools. You got to blame Barack Obama for that. That's how I look at it. All right, and enough of that bullshit. But I got caught up in the background. Sorry about that. But I'm glad I'm speaking to y'all today. It's been a mess with this infection, and you got a bunch of morons on the internet talking about this other stuff. Shout out to dude, F Your Mama's channel. He's got a good channel. He's typical. He knows about the red pill space. I mean, I'm surprised. Everybody knows. I try to tell you the red pill space. He says it's not bad. He says it's not bad, and I don't blame him. That's just what you get to see and what you hear and all this other stuff. But like I said, the playoffs has been very interesting. I'm not saying that to be crazy or anything, but hog roaster. That's like one of the decent weapons in the game. I'm playing Dead Island. Y'all excuse me in the background, but I do it on the stream, whatever. But I just like saying what dude was saying about the females. The females gonna have intercourse who they want. It's based off their environmental touches and things like that. I don't really delve into the politics of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, like when you talk about feminism, feminism ain't dead, but it's actually kind of dead because you don't have the structures like you used to. Because everybody's a sellout. You know what I'm saying? You got a lot of simps in these spaces ruining it for everybody. Simps have ruined a whole lot of shit. Let's just keep it real. I'm not saying everybody's perfect, but you know how that goes. But I get what people are saying. But when I look at these playoffs, man, like, I'm talking a little sports and I'm going back to current events in a moment, um, everything that's gone on, these playoffs have been very interesting. Now, there was some splits, but the Lakers, with the KD, I don't trust the Lakers. I really don't. It's a hype job. But do not be surprised if they lose game three. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't believe them. And the Lakers are not the best team in the West. Let's cut that out. They're nowhere near that. They ain't beating. the defending champs. Now, if OKC sweeps the Suns team, do not be surprised. And they play tonight too. I got to check that game out. If they do good, looks like we're going to see a repeat, but they're going to beat everybody. Yeah, Shea may get all the calls, but I don't think he's going to get all the calls. They're going to beat the Lakers if they go to semis. Lakers going to go home in the second round. First round, yeah, maybe, but second round, yeah, they're going home. Houston's good too. They're a good rebounding team, but the problem is they have bad execution on offense. Where is it going to come from? It's going to take Atari Eason and a mix of Şengün and probably Kevin Durant to pull it off. You know how that goes. But when you start looking at the things that you need, I would say the Minnesota and Denver is the series in the first round. That's going to be a great series. And Minnesota, if they upset Denver like they did before, when they have all those guys assembled, all I'm going to say is Minnesota may beat the Spurs. Spurs are very inexperienced. They do have experienced players that won a championship. I think it was Harrison Barnes. He won one in 2015. And I think he came back with him the next year and then he lost. I got to make sure that he played with him or they just got rid of him before the KD thing. Because I know they didn't win the repeat. I got to keep that in mind. Because a lot of things that happen to Harrison Barnes. I'm going with the Spurs. I do it that way because he's on the team. Now, Wemby's ruled out with a concussion. He may come back game 3 or not, but it's a possibility he'll come back, and it's not going to be that serious. It's just hours to make sure his head is all right. And if he's cleared to play, do not be surprised if he comes to game 3. Do not be surprised because I don't believe in the Trailblazers. I really don't. Because the Trailblazers, they just, let's see. Harrison Barnes went out of UNC. A lot of y'all don't know. He's part of our generation. So, he won a championship in 2015. Yes, he played in Sacramento and things like that. Okay. He was in the 2012 draft along with Anthony Davis, 7th overall pick. He was drafted by the Golden State Warriors in 2012 before they had, him and Draymond, they was on the same team. They was drafted in 2012. Now, he wasn't no all-star or anything. He's an all rookie, but he wasn't no all-star. He was a role player. That's what he ended up being. He was a top pick, but a role player. Didn't pan out as much. And how much he averaged. So, yeah, he is an NBA champion since 2015 Warriors with Andre Iguodala. He was on that team. His birthday's next month. He'll be 34 this year. So I'm not surprised. He went to the Dallas Mavericks in 2016. Played with him since 2019. Now, he did play for the Golden State Warriors. He did play for the Golden State Warriors 2016. I don't know if he was on that championship team, but he did go to Dallas that year and stayed with Dallas for a minute and then went to Sacramento, and that was up in 2024. And then 2024, he went to the Spurs. That happened. So he's part of that 2015 team. He was with Golden State for years. For a record win, 73-9. He was part of that 73-9 team in the playoffs. But he signed a 4-year deal 16-17 season. So the 2016 offseason, he did sign with the Dallas Mavericks, and then that's how they have Kevin Durant. They wasn't going to pay Harrison Barnes. He was in that playoffs. Yeah, I remember him. He was in that 2016 playoffs and then lost. It was in the NBA Finals, but they lost to LeBron. And they had a chance to beat LeBron. He didn't come back. He went to Dallas, and yeah, he has experience. And Cornette also won a championship recently 2 years ago. So yeah, the Spurs got a little experience, but they ain't got the best experience to win a championship. They're very inexperienced. They're a young team. And then you have an experienced OKC team. They're a little experienced, but they're really not because they won last year. They're not the most experienced. Now, they have experience in the playoffs, but as champions, no. Because OKC can get knocked off and don't repeat. Now, if they repeat, they do have experience in championships. You at least get 2. That's the standard now. At least get 2. Not just 1, but 2. See, that all started with Kawhi Leonard when he went to Toronto, even though San Antonio traded him to a team that thought they're no man's land, but he turned that team around and focused and played for a contract. That's the reason why he won that championship, and that's the reason why he turned that team around. And he had help, he had Van Fleet, he had everybody. And that roster was kind of loaded. But in a way, I look at this as a thing that 2019 playoffs, CJ McCollum was with the Trailblazers, and if people forget, he was in the conference finals years ago. And now you look at this finals with the Knicks. I mean, Knicks are out of there, bro. They're out of there, bro. You know how that goes. They're out of there. I'm not saying that to be saying it. I'm just saying what it do. They're out of there. That pop of the balloon shit. It's just insane. But everything's wild. But but that's why I look in the playoffs. But yeah, the playoffs have been very interesting in the NBA. The officiating, they just let them play. They just don't even care at this point. But when I look at these things, I look at this stuff, I'm just like, okay. So I look at it and it is what it is. Yeah. Pop the what you got. but it's crazy though. It's crazy. And people, oh wait, they on Pop the Balloon and crazy. Well, some people they get attached. They get attached to these things and wonder why Pop the Balloon is such a big deal. And it is what it is. I'm not saying that to be saying it, but people just go crazy over it. You know, oh, it's 20. Yeah, it's 220 right now. So it just goes to show you. I've been doing good on the live stream. I think my sinuses be killing me. It's mucus related, but I'll get it straightened out. But yeah, I think, like the internet is just like, ever since I haven't done a stream like this in a while, I'm like, I like these. I might continue with this series. See how far I go. I might extend this a little more. And I said I was going to end it in April, but I said, no, I got to see what's going on. But if I extend it next month, yeah, because we're going to talk about the playoffs. I got some content. I found some very interesting things. And yeah, I'm gonna keep doing this for a minute because I'll come up with a name beginning round. The summer's out. We'll do this one more time, and then I'll do something for the summer. Or change the layout. I might not change the layout, but change the landscape of a new content, a new playlist. I'll do streams on, and that's it. So, but yeah, like I said, the popular balloons done became a popular thing. I know they sold out on Netflix. That y'all think about Arlette. No, they got these off brand ones, and then you got these hoes out here wanting jobs and shit. But you got to blame who's in office. I've been watching Sarge lately. Sergeant Willie P. He's been talking about this stuff about the guy not being buff and all that. I kind of agree what he's saying. Yeah, working out your body, that's all great and all, but sometimes I disagree. Everybody's not built like that. People got to actually want to work out. People got to actually want to work out. And, and Durant, they say he got 9 turnovers. I ain't worried about them damn turnovers. I ain't worried about them damn turnovers. Fuck them turnovers. That's just, that was desperation. You get what I'm saying? I'm good. But you gotta understand the world is changing. Oh, Patrick Ewing's podcast. Oh, I gotta see this. Let me see this. I might have to see that. I might have to see that. That's on my phone and stuff. You know what I'm saying? I can look it up and all this other stuff. Okay, sorry. What's going on, Sarge? Sergeant Willie Pete. In case y'all know, go subscribe. He talked about all this stuff. 2977. Uh 36. I haven't watched that. I watched Who I Am, The Threat of Black Masculinity, and you got the 2977. That's a shorter video. I might have to watch that later, see what he's talking about. I gotta watch that later. Yeah, I'll watch that later. I'll watch that later. I might watch it on his channel later. I'm not gonna bump into it. I might watch it later in the background. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of crazy, but you know how it goes. And it's kind of crazy, to get to see and all that. I'm just looking at his page right now, but it's a lot going on. But I'm not worried about what's going on overseas. A bunch of BS and all this other stuff, and yeah, Let's see something. Oh, okay. I'm playing as him. Well, I'm looking forward to what's going on. So it is what it is. I got 25 minutes up in here. Yeah, I got 25 minutes. And this will be an hour. So you know how that goes. But I look at these things and we see what's going on and you know, the skins and all that. Okay, 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 okay. Fancy weapons and things like that. Okay, backstab, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But like I said before I said begin, when you look at these things like what's going on in the internet, social networking, a lot of people call it social media and things like that. You look at things that really matter about people's so-called dating experience or relationships and stuff. I don't get caught up into that, that type of content, but I talk about it every now and then and briefly because sometimes people are caught up into those things and they're just having moments. But what I do remember is like there was a time and place for that. You know what I mean? And I just look at it like, why do y'all care so much? I'm just saying, why y'all fucking care so much? And I'm just looking at it like, okay. See, I don't want to talk about prostitution being legal, but I think it's legal in Vegas, I believe, in the United States. But well, actually, it's illegal. Excuse me, it's illegal, but it's actually the adult entertainment is legal there, but it's actually illegal in certain things. But if they legalize prostitution, I wish they would try to do that in the future. That's what the Democrats is trying to do. They're thinking about it. That will stop all this stuff. But I think they won't do it because several reasons. I think they will do it if AI becomes huge. They'll restrict everybody, but they'll reverse all this other stuff. That's what I believe. But it's going to take time. It's incentives, contracts, things like that. And if you don't want to participate, it's always about financial stuff. And some people say, "Oh, marriage is down the toilet. They need money to get people, so prostitution will probably be free, and it's going to be a different culture." I think people don't want to get married; they just don't want to deal with the headache of someone else and things like that nature. It's just like, okay, okay, this is going too far, you know. I'm just saying, people just got to look at the parameters of what's going on. That people are just not, they're not going for it, man. They're not going for it. I'm gonna have to explode. I'm gonna have to explode afterwards. Oh, girl is awesome. Let me get off this net shit. Get off This net shit. Yeah, I'll look at old boy later. Yeah, I'll cut down on that. So that's crazy. But I saw shouts to Steve Knight talking about the pop balloons of BBWs, man. I thought that was interesting. But I'm not tripping, I think that's the thing. He said these simps dumb dads head. Well, it's a combination of dudes and the people in power allowed this shit to happen because simps did it automatically. Y'all gotta understand the world died a long time ago, bro. I just don't understand why people just buy into the nonsense. It's just like y'all expect people um I just don't understand, man. Y'all get caught up in this stuff. Like pop the balloon is one thing, but who cares? Like it's not something that I entertain. And niggas talking about it. I wouldn't go on the show, nigga. Yes, you would if you have intercourse with them, and there you are. It is what it is. And I look at these things and I'm like, yeah, nigga, you gonna participate. But it's like, what's the point? You know what I'm saying? What's the point of me participating? You know what I mean? But that's just something I look at. I look at things like that, and then I'm just like, okay, I'm here blanking out, and you know, look at these things, and then that's it. So, but like I've recently taken an advantage of what's going on, but all this other stuff about people just looking for love and all this stuff. I'm like, man, y'all need to get off the internet, bro. Y'all look like the weird ones looking for love, and it's goofy. Like everybody talking, I'm this street like you niggas are simps and squares. I don't even believe they stories. Now I believe old boy story a little bit. If he showed evidence he did, yeah, he can tell the story. It's not about all that. That player shit ain't gonna work in the red pill space. That makes you a sucker too. It's a lot of simps in that lane. It's a lot of fake street dudes, period. Because they don't be talking, and I don't believe that snitch shit. Like that shit died. That shit was cool when I was in high school. If you did the shit, you did the shit. That shit's dead. Everybody's a sellout. You can't trust nobody. See, y'all gotta understand. Everybody's a sellout to further notice, and I'm tired of people defending that bullshit. Here we go with this bullshit. This game sucks half the time. Um, Pissing me off. I got too old. What I'm looking at. Got too old. I got too old. Pissing me off. Yeah, that's the only thing I hate about this fucking game every now and then. They always want to piss me off. But that's the whole point, you know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get through this bullshit as I can. I usually don't get popped like that. Certain characters I'm good, but it's the bullshit that comes with it. I'm tired of shit. I'm an irritant at heart. Yeah, people make me mad. I'm a sore loser. I ain't got time for that shit. It's too old when you do dumb shit. Trying me. Yeah. I was just gathering my thoughts for a minute, but excuse me. But it gets like that sometimes, when you look at the internet and it's changed so much for years to get to a level that you be. But man, yeah, it'll drive you nuts. It'll drive you nuts half of the time. I looked at some positive shit when I was growing up, even when I was young, start off YouTube like we talking about 2007. I'm talking about myself. It was fun. Yeah, when we went outside. I miss the good old days, man. It's dead now because the bitch assness of what you got is simps. They don't ruin every motherfucking thing. And I'm just not a fan of that. I'm just not a fan of that. I'm just not a fan of that. So you got a lot of things going on. So you got people complaining about relationships, and most of these motherfuckers is in. They're kind of like they're married, which is pathetic, man. Why the hell you want to go on the show looking for sex on there? That's usually what it is. It's a hookup culture. Pop the balloon is never a hookup culture. Just live on screen, and it's always has some sexual connotations behind it. And you got to look at it like this is the most pathetic thing they can do, as people. And they did that for a reason. No matter what the female body types, yeah, niggas work bitch and complain about hoes. It's not about they can't get none. It's they're lame. It's these lame simps that promote it. And a lot of these bitches and these sucker ass simps that promote it, they're simps in real life. They allow this to happen. This ain't got nothing to do with black men. Do not fall for that shit. This is simp behavior in general. And they said, "Sir, what do you mean by this simp behavior?" Because it is like they play the utilitarian game right there. If y'all stop feeding into the bullshit, you won't have these problems. Stop dealing with hoes. Stop talking about online. If you're a man, you just have to move in silence, especially in relationships. So that shit has sailed. The conversations is dead. They don't have no logic in them, and they trash as hell. They're a bucket. 95% of these females are buckets out here. And I'm not saying that they're not buckets, but they are. On those shows, they're buckets. It's too many buckets outside the internet. You know what I'm saying? Because, like I said, the internet's the new modern television. I try to tell people they didn't listen to what I was saying 5 years ago. Like I'll say, was it 4 or 5? It was okay. What is 2020? That's 4 to 5. Okay, 2022. Okay, let's break this down. Okay, 2024 is 2 years ago. 2023, 3 years ago. 5 years ago, yeah, 2020 during the pandemic era, right? So 2022, 4 years ago, I was saying the same thing too. But 5 years ago, when I had those long live streams, we was all saying this in conversation. When I had StreamYards, y'all remember that shit died, man. It died before the pandemic. Now it got worse. It accelerated. So after that, and in 2022 into now, it's gotten worse and worse every year. And this is why you see a lot of those shows popping up. Last time I saw them shows was what 2024 when they started. It was brand new, and then it popped off that next year. In 2025 was rough then. That was a decent year to me. 2025, I enjoyed it last year, even though we don't fuck with the city in the White House. I mean, America was stable, but 2025 was a hell of a year. That was a hell of a year, hell of a year. But this year, it's just like this madness we see in 2026, man. It's election year, but it's crazy. But it's one of those crazy years you get to see what's going on and be like, all right, this is the type of stuff that you see all the time. But you get to know that people is seeing this stuff in real time, and you understand that a lot of people they just get caught up in the moment. So again, I understand why simps want to be on these shows and these hoes just don't like them. They'll have intercourse with a a damn thing that's the size of a damn paperclip or some shit. They don't care nothing about you, bro. Yeah, they care about the bag, but still, they care about their interests. Because money and all the other stuff matters, but when you have the interest, you get support. So it's like it's nothing new. You know what I mean? It's not new. It's not new. I just look at this stuff and just like, man, I gotta take this with a grain of salt. It is what it is. Hey, what's going on, Chantel? Salute, salute, salute. What's going on? But it's like, I mean, it's crazy, man. Like relationships, I've seen a lot of that on X. Everybody's talking about their marriages. I mean, yeah, everybody's having kids, which is cool. I wouldn't have it in this time and under Trump. It's crazy. But it's like, the e-files, what y'all known as what, they ain't gonna release the whole thing. That's gonna be, Democrats gonna comb through that. And it's like a lot of people call them what, the Normic trials, Norma, or whatever you want to call them trials. We're gonna see that. It's gonna be so interesting. And that shit over there in West Asia, we're not gonna worry about that. That is not looking too good, but we're not going to delve into that. That's just irrelevant talk, especially foreign policy now. Everybody's divided on that, so I can't really say much on the tube. So it's already been said. You got channels for that. They go in depth on that. I can really go in depth what it's really about. It's none of those things that motherfuckers talking about. We said that shit 5 years ago. It was going to be something like this, but it's like a post-apocalyptic culture. You got to remember, the post-apocalyptic culture started when the world changed, when I would say Bush, when this century had a terrorist attack. That's when you start learning that that's your World War III right there. But it's a combination of a buildup, and then you have the Armageddon version after World War III. It's Armageddon War. Now they going to call it World War III, but it's not. You already in it. It's called terrorism. This is the ones with basic weapons, and you're in it. It's called post-apocalyptic culture. That's why you see a lot of post-apocalyptic movies, TV shows, and video games. Video games is the biggest because you got series, and then you also have the movies and television shows promoting like it's a thing. Get prepared, get all your stuff, your canned beans and goods, and all this other shit. But that's what you see now. Hell, Sarge was talking about it about the crash outs. Yes, you're going to see a lot of crash outs. Yes, you're going to see crash outs in the future. You might not see it this year, but you're going to see it in the future if things go left. It's going to be very, very interesting what we're going to see in the future because sports is okay for now, and the financial stuff is really hurting people. And I wish everybody the best of luck and prayer for the Most High bless it and learn to have a wonderful, fruitful mindset. It is what it is. So I look at this stuff and I'm analyzing. I'm like, okay, we're in here. We are in here. But you keep going. I understand that the red pill spaces, like I said, they're disappearing. They're disappearing. Well, the fake red pill spaces are disappearing, but the real red pill spaces still stands. You just got to fight your way, understand the particulars, and have the base. But guys that I listened to thought they were the man. They were not the man. The whole time they was using me for success. So it is what it is. So I've learned that over the years, you got to trust yourself and let the dice roll, and that's it. So it's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And I look at these things, I'm like, okay, so the playoffs is going on. I'm watching basketball. That's my leisure. Um, what else is talking about? The news, politics, but the relationship content on X is just pathetic. There's a lot of biased females out there, or so-called women out there trying to say, "Oh, I'm a world woman, I'm this or that. They did nothing wrong." Not called BS. Does the so-called man, the boys, male, do all the dirty work? Absolutely. I'll say 25%, 15 to 25% of them probably do that, and the other percentage they ain't doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, F your mother, shouts out his channel is pretty good. He don't get no views or anything, but he's making good content, and I like his stuff, and he explains what's going on about the females that want, the anal penetration, right? And anal sex, preferably they said, is that a man thing, or is it, they just trying to make it about men or males in general? I said, no, that's a female concept. And what he said is very true. I'm responding to a video. I'm just preference what he was saying. They like that stuff, but most of these dudes don't like doing it every night, especially if you're in a relationship. If you're into that, they're not comfortable with that. You gotta have three things um, to make her between the legs perfect. Like he said something. It's a video. Y'all can go check it. I ain't gonna explain it, but he said it perfectly correctly. Yeah. But the thing is, it's loose, and then and some of it is just trash. Same way with a female say he's got a trash, you know what, the D, right? And then next thing you know, the dick or whatever. It's a 50-50 split on that. And everybody's different when they answers, especially if they had experience, they'll tell you, if they lived the life, they lived the life. Most dudes don't care. Deep down, that's why you got a lot of simps be destroying a lot of stuff. So again, I've been on this tip for a long, long time. So that's been known, not just X and other platforms, but that's been known across the world. Like if you're into that, that's a fetish thing with the buttocks and the ass. What they say they like to get, an ass, right? A lot of these females you hear here on podcasts, they're being uh graphic, adult content graphic. I don't want to say the P word. I would love to say it, but that's their content. It's art behind that. So it's a whole nother story, man. Whole nother story. I'm not gonna get into the details what it meant, but I know exactly what he meant, and I thought that was interesting. So, anyways, enough of that. Y'all can check his channel, but he broke down a lot of stuff that I didn't think, and he said something about Seattle. Let's break down Seattle. He said Seattle in the '80s, right? He said from '85 to the '90s. He said the Seattle around that period was rough. He says like LA dudes before it was same sexual, like the group that like I like to call them the others. I don't like calling them their fake names that they got. But the same sexual, the people that own the area, right? And I think he made some comments or something, and it is what it is. But Seattle, he said before it was known to be soft and finesse, what he's saying, it was not always like that. That's what people think of Seattle. And then, he's from Seattle. He said, no, it was not always like this. You go to certain parts, you see a crackhead and monsters and all that. We call them crack monsters where I'm from, originally from Tennessee, but that was normal. And he's right. So from that era, from '85 to he said, I believe 1997. So I was born in the late '80s, but in the '90s, I know what you're talking about. '97, I was like, what, 9? Oh man. He talking about a time where rap was at its hardcore and its purest. The '90s rap was elevating in the '90s. You had different eras of artists that you pick from in different genres. Then the '90s just ran by, and then the 21st century came, it became the thing. But the '90s was just incredible. I don't care what nobody said. The '90s was incredible. Yeah, Michael Jordan with the last shot. That's why they create that silly documentary called The Last Dance, which is a waste, really. Just go watch the Detroit Pistons 30 for 30, and you'll understand how they treated Mike. He didn't become a winner until later on. So, but that's all I gotta say on that. But he was right about Seattle, but Seattle had its rough period, and before they finessed it, and then and this is why you see what happened to Key Arena. To me, that was a dispute with Clay Bennett. Clay Bennett moved them to OKC, which is silly, and that's why Seattle didn't get a team because blame Clay Bennett and blame the guy that sold the team to Clay Bennett. He was from Starbucks, and he ruined the Seattle SuperSonics legacy. Two white men wanted the same thing but not care about the team, and that's basically what you got in a nutshell. and that's what you see. And I'm just looking at it like, okay, this is how they gonna go. But you look at these things, you be like, all right, this is how that's gonna be. But I was thinking, I'm just pondering for a minute. I was got distracted, but I ain't trying to lose my thought. But yeah, man, this stuff is wild. The stuff they be doing out here, and people just wonder why things go left all the time. But you got to pay attention to the world. The world has come a long way, and it changed a little bit. So it changed a whole lot. But like I was saying, this the stuff that you see. But I was just browsing for a minute. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna chill out with that. But like I said, that's like a phenomenon. What I was about to say. What I was about to say. I talked about that, about the dudes and everything. Yeah, man. It's current events. It's just like I was talking about Seattle. Excuse me, Seattle. Yeah, Seattle. And I said something about a boy, he was from there, and shouts out to Seattle anyway. But yeah, they're gonna make an expansion team to bring the NBA. It'd be interesting if the Thunder doesn't win this year, and if Cleveland sell it to some tech billionaire from Seattle, they might buy it from him and move back to that way. It'd be curious, but they're gonna do that retcon nonsense. I believe that. We'll see. Was Seattle? It ain't what y'all think it is. No, it had some rough spots. All of them did. Gangs changed that in the '90s. And what you got today is you got the same sexual stuff. It's huge thanks to Barack Obama in 2012. He won the election. He was going to win it regardless because his belief system is powerful. And someone was behind him to dictate power. So again, Trump was manufactured. He was controlled. That's what you see now. You see this stuff, and then the Cash Patel, they trolled him about his drinking and stuff like that. Well, Cash, you get what you get. You should have got caught with a hand in a cookie jar, and then there it is. But you got people love to lie on the internet and try to say that ain't a thing, but it is a thing. People just don't care. They don't care about these things. And that's the things that I don't understand that people just want to buy into. You know what I mean? I started looking at things clearly when people just do weird stuff or get attention. You know how it goes. But I saw some on Cam and they had Ron Harper the next day. They was going at LeBron, right? And Ron Harper, he's a well-known player that won 5 championships, I believe, 5 championships with the 3 championships with the Bulls. They won with Lakers. I don't know if he's a 4-time or 5-time champ. I keep missing. I don't know if he was on that Laker team in 2021. I mean, 2001, excuse me, 2001, or how you want to say it. 2001, like we used to say it. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. It is what it is. But I think you see this stuff right now that a lot of stuff is out of thin air, and people just to get depressed with not just relationships. I was just talking about Seattle and the basketball team. It's like it's gonna be interesting about the NBA how they have relationships with people. But it's a lot to think about. But the economy is different. It's very thing everything goes up. We'll see. We'll see. But that's like a little bit much of it. When okay, 56 to 30 minutes. Okay, we're talking about it. All right. Yeah. Yeah. So what I want to talk about, okay. It's a lot of stuff going on the current event. Okay, I talked about sports, I talked about a little bit of everything, and I talked about the playoffs, talk about the relationships that F Your Mama talked about. He breaks it down brutally. Y'all go subscribe to his channel. He's got a good vibe what it's supposed to be about, you know. Then you got clowns like Young Don trying to protect females, but I ain't trying to protect them. The hell, they should get married, be proper women, and they get off this internet. A lot of y'all have a digital footprint that's larger than dudes. It's really sad, even if they have kids and they've been ran through, it's just like, But I'm not mad if they ran through, that's their business, you know what I mean? I don't really care. I was like, and Lob said, ain't nobody dating that over here. But I understand if you like that, that's cool. I'm not judging nobody. I mean, y'all do what y'all do. Because I know this is the United States of America. You can do what you want to do. Hell, they accept you down here in GA and you be like, all right, this is wild. Everybody said, I'm still single. I want to be in a relationship. These horrors, bro. I need a man. I got 3 or 4 kids. I'm like, get out of here. And he got the dudes and simps say, I'm still single. And then oh boy, it was funny. He said most of the simps are muscle bound, overweight. Talk about female. Yeah, but that's what you got. You know what I'm saying? But it is what it is. But the red pill space, the essence of it, what it used to be, is dead. It's in spurs and fragments. But you do have people over here complaining about meat. The delicate meat. You know what I'm saying? Love meat. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. The sinuses is bad. It's going where it's gonna go. So, but when I look at this stuff, I'm just looking at it from optics and things like that. It's not an hour yet. You know, it's not an hour yet. I'll talk to y'all a couple more minutes. It's just my thoughts. But on X, man, y'all already know, formerly known as Twitter. I don't call that shit Twitter. When it was Twitter, you had Jack Dorsey in them. They wasn't paying nobody either, just unlike Elon Musk, grokking him. That's what I'm talking about. That shit's a shit show and a half. You know what I mean? It lost its essence and its taste, and I mess with the features, and I'm good off that, man. I'm good off that. It's a lot of stupid people on there, but a lot of idiots and simps and things like that. And you just look at this thing and you be like, what the hell they doing on X? You know what I mean? But you look at this stuff and you be like, all right, cool. But that's the fun that you get. You just got to look at the things and you be like, oh, you can't have this stuff right here. What do you mean? I ain't no simpy. I ain't no sugar dick. I ain't them guys. I'm a player. Yo, player. Okay, player. Arr, arr, arr. Okay, player. Dong, 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 dong. Dong, 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 dong. Yeah, it is what it is. Damn. She big as hell. Yeah, it's crazy. Let's see what she got. It's a lot of things going on. So it's only an hour. I'm just scrolling, see what's on this site. You know, this current events, we talk about everybody, man. It is what it is. But you know, people like that stuff. I know Platinum likes them plus size women and all that. They everywhere. Hell, they try to get recognition. They get on my nerves. I'm gonna do something for a minute. Let's see. me see. I must have did something. Okay. That's probably what that is. Yeah, but I was just glancing at my little machine, phone. I didn't mean to take the long pauses, but it is what it is. But that's all I got. But like I said, it's wild out here, man. You got people looking at the playoffs and they try to say the streaming apps about a paywall. But that's the future. Like the NBA's trying to get their coins and everything. I give two shits about it, but I think Prime is a failure. Anybody that fucks with Amazon is crazy. They out of there. NBC's making profit if you just have their subscriptions because that's the only one's worth it, to be honest with you. And then ESPN, them other sites, they're on Fubo TV. You can watch that. They took off NBA TV, Fubo TV. Now, if you have YouTube TV, they got all the stuff, but I don't know, man. It's gonna be very interesting. Now, you said, "Oh, I could watch the Peacock." I heard someone said that, but plus, here's the problem with that: just get the app. It's better. You get to see all the games instead of YouTube TV. It's just not gonna work. YouTube TV is good. You can watch ESPN and stuff like that. They have that ABC Disney. I think they'll dispute it later, but Disney is a mess right now. But that's what you got now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's gonna be very interesting what the Democrats do. They're gonna probably regulate all this shit. Quiet as kept. Probably regulate all this shit. Probably gonna regulate it. Mm. Yeah, it's a lot of crazy shit on here. There's a lot of crazy shit on here. Let's see what's out here. I'll look at this later. So, but shouts out to everybody. Shouts out to Chantel and people that sky watching. Appreciate y'all. But that's all I got. But we'll talk about what we're gonna talk about. I'll extend it next month. Because I said I was gonna cancel it in April. I said, no, I'm gonna talk about something different. We'll talk a little bit about the playoffs and see how the progress is going with each teams and things like that. Anybody. But I will talk about how to identify real red pill content creators that actually do it in spurts and they study us from years and years. And then you got the fake red pills that they promote and they end up becoming sellouts in politics. I'll talk about that sooner or later. So with that, until next time, shalom to the people of Israel, to the Gentiles. Until next time, I'm signing off.